All right, folks, here we are live. Robert O'Brien from the O'Brien Guitars Workshop. Good morning and welcome to Shop Talk number 15. And I'm sitting here in my shop, excuse me, and I feel like I'm just talking to myself. So if there's any problem with video or audio, please be sure and let me know. Here comes the shop dog. I hear him coming down, Big Duke. And let's just see who is online with us. Boy, I've got some of the usual people. Lucidia de Pobre. Hey, there's down there in Brazil. Jonatas Dukester Hockey, who is my son. Oh, look who just showed up. It's the girl from Ipanema. She has brought, oh, thank you so much. Brought me a bottle of water and some Brazilian coffee. For those that don't know the girl from Ipanema, this is my wife, Adriana, who I met in Brazil years ago. And she keeps me well supplied here with coffee and things as I work. So thanks for Adriana for doing that.
Do you want something too?
No, she brought me a dog biscuit too. That's for Duke, the shop dog, who's down here off camera.
That's why he's here.
Yeah. Thank you for the coffee. And you folks feel free to join in if you would like to grab a cup of coffee and follow along here with me. Very good. So welcome to the O'Brien Guitars Workshop. Like I said, Shop Talk number 15. It's been a while since I've done one of the Shop Talks here because I've been busy. And I've got some things on my bench over there I'm going to show you in just a minute. Lucidia de Pobre is here. Jonatas Dukester Hockey. Dukester Hockey is my son, and we cannot do these streams without my son Thiago helping us out here. He's the technical guru behind all this. And you know, when I get ready to go live and the mic is not working or the video cameras are not working or something's happening, then Thiago's the one that gets me up and running real quick. So thank you, Thiago. There's a lot of people from Brazil here today. Look at that. Well, okay. I tried a different time this morning. We're doing 10 o'clock this morning, so I could probably pick up some people from Europe and from the other side of the world that can't normally tune in when I do these in the evening. Yes?
Asking for audio to be a little bit louder?
Audio to be a little bit louder. All right, let me just see if I can get that up.
Mine works fine though.
Here, let's just bump that up just a little bit. All right, and there's a delay of about 20 to 30 seconds here, so hopefully that will help get the audio up just a little bit louder. I think that'll do it. Good. All right. David there from North Carolina. NoCo. Dave up there in NoCo. How you doing, Dave? John Connery. Happy Saturday. Thank you, sir. Audio could be a tad louder. That was David. I hope we fixed that problem. Heidi up there in Prince Edward Island. How you doing, Heidi? Good to see you here.
Much better.
Jim Kirby. Brady. Man, there's just a lot of people. How many people got on here, Adriana?
33.
33 people so far. Well, you 33 are lucky because today I got a little bit of fun, some stories for you. Also, we're going to have a giveaway. If you would like to win my audiobook that I put together last year during COVID, when I had nothing to do, I've been collecting stories over the years. And one time I had a student in here and I started telling all these stories and he said, you know, you really should write a book. And so during that week that the student was here, I had a piece of paper on my bench, and anytime that I would remember a story, I'd walk over to my bench and I'd write that down. And at the end of the week, I had about 75 stories. And so there's quite a lot that I could tell. And so instead of writing a book, I went ahead and did an audiobook. And there's a lot of great stories in there. In fact, let me just see if I can pull that up on my website here. Let's see here. Give me just a second. There it is. There's my website. There's a couple of things I want to show you about the O'Brien Guitars website. One is the free audiobook there. Oh, free? Wait a minute. It's not. Oh, yeah, I guess it is free. We're having a promotion this month. If you purchase anything at $150 or more, one of my online courses, then you get a free copy of the audiobook, or you get a chance to win one today. However, if you want to win one today, you've got to click on the link there in the chat box, and you've got to put in your name and email address so that we know how to find you and know who you are. You also have to be present to win. So here in a little while, if you're still online, we're going to do a quick drawing, and my web developer down there in Brazil, Cesar, is going to do the drawing for us here live, so you'll know if you've won. But if you don't win and you want a copy of the book, you can buy it outright. It's about 15 bucks on my website, or if you want to purchase something of an online course, and that gets thrown in as a benefit. Also, if you want to watch past shop talks, this is shop talk number 15. If you want to watch the other 14, just go to my website here, click on the media tab, and there's a drop-down menu that says videos. You click on the video tab. That takes you to another page where there's another drop-down menu, and it defaults to my luthier tips du jour videos. But if you click on the drop-down menu there, then you can go to live streams, and then all of my Shop Talk live streams will pop up there. The last one was about acoustic guitar voicing, so if you missed that one, I'm sorry. That's a really good one, so you might want to go back and see that one. Adriana, how are we doing on the chat box there?
30. You have 30 people now, and we have somebody from UK. Chris said it's a good time now. It's mostly high, and we have people from all over the US and UK. And good morning from Louisiana.
So we got people from all over. I got some complaints last time. I did this at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and it's midnight over there in Europe, and so people said, hey, can you try and find a time that worked for everybody? So that's what I tried to do. Hopefully it worked out. As I take a sip of Brazilian coffee here. So I've got all the cameras going on here. Camera number 1 is me, hi, and camera number 2 is over there, hi, and that shows all of the apparatus that I have set up here. I've got a computer set up, and I've got my camera behind that. Got the camera over there. Got a camera on the ceiling. I'm going to show you here in just a second. Aha, there's the camera on the ceiling. And under this is, oh, I can't show you. I can't reveal the secrets yet. These are the essential hand tools that we're going to talk about today. That's the topic for today, and I've got it covered up so that you can't see it just yet. Also, way over there on the other side of the shop, I'm way over here. Can you see my hand? Hey, there's Adriana. Adriana, step a little bit to your right there.
Oh.
There you go.
Kind of dangerous.
That's right.
Wires.
So there's Adriana. Wave to that camera over there. You'll see I've got a couple of guitars on the bench, and as things come in, I turn the camera on and talk about it. And so got a couple of surprises for you we can talk about there. Any questions coming in yet? If you have any, go ahead and get your questions ready. This is an interactive shop talk, so I like to answer anybody's questions. Nothing's off limits, although the main topic here today is essential hand tools. And if you have any questions, though, feel free to let me know, and hopefully I can address those. Heidi all the way up there in Prince Edward Island.
We have folks from Australia.
Paul from King Carroll, that's right here in Colorado. Australia, 2 a.m. there. I tell you what, Steve, that is real dedication, 2 a.m. to just watch me yak. Larry Jones from Austin. Anyway, welcome aboard for everybody, and thanks again to my wife and my son, Thiago, also says they're down there in Brazil, for helping me to pull these things off. I'm going to pull up camera number 4. I'm going to walk over to my other bench, and I'm going to talk just a couple of seconds about some things that are on my bench. And so here's camera number 4, and I'm going to walk over there. Got to step over Duke, the shop dog. He's down here watching. Here we are over here at camera number 4. Let's talk about this one first of all. This is I'm going to step even a little closer to the camera here. This is a pretty high-end Taylor. This is a 710E model, and it's a beautiful burst dreadnought with some beautiful Indian rosewood back inside, the high gloss lacquer that Taylor does. I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous. However, if you look very close at it, you can see that somebody has scratched the word liar into the soundboard. Can you see that on the camera over there, Adriana?
Which one?
Through YouTube, can you see it? Because I'm getting...
I'm kind of behind. Yes, I can.
I'm getting kind of a reflection.
Yeah, I do too.
Anyway, so somebody has scratched very deep into that soundboard, into the finish, the word liar. And the moral of the story is never upset or piss off your significant other. Because that could happen to you. And that came in several weeks ago, and we've decided that it's just not worth fixing. And apparently the person just abandoned it because it's been here in my shop ever since. And I posted a picture on Facebook about that at some time, and people put out all kinds of interesting comments about, hey, that would be a great name for a band, or you could somehow scratch it out and make the word guitar instead of lyre. Anyway, a lot of comments on my Facebook page about that. So go to my Facebook page and check that out if you want to. Very interesting story. And every now and then I get these guitars in like this that have interesting stories. I had one come from New York recently where the guy had loaned it to his brother and his brother had destroyed it and said, hey, don't worry, I can fix that. And it was a very high-end Dave Matthews model from Martin. And he had sandpapered the top and spray painted it gold. I mean, it was just a mess. Anyway, here's another one that's come into my shop. This, as far as I can tell, is somewhere from about 1840 to 1860. This is an old Martin. And this was the Spanish model. Martin made several Spanish models with either 3 or 5 fan braces. So this one had 3. It had 1 down the middle and 2 down the sides here like this. And all of them tucked into the kerfing down here. And it came in, I'm going to show you some pictures here in a minute. It came in on life support. There was a big hole right here. It was very severely damaged, had a big brick of mahogany for a bridge, and the bridge patch on the inside was even bigger than the bridge on the outside. I mean, it was just atrocious. Somebody had done some work over the years. So I've got it to this point where I've got it back together, and I've got the period type bridge on there, which would have been the pyramid bridge. It's kind of a hybrid because it has a tone bar coming down through here. And it also has 2 finger braces on either side up here. So Martin was going through some transitional stuff with his Spanish models. He at some point did double X braces and all that kind of stuff. But this was a kind of a hybrid between an X and a Spanish fan bracing. So very interesting guitar. I'll show you some pictures here in a minute. It has been in the same family since day one. The guy's great-great-grandfather purchased that, and he lives in Colorado. It's got some beautiful Brazilian rosewood for back and sides. I've retouched up the finish on that, so it's a lot shinier than it is when it came in here, and I've fixed all the cracks and things like that. The fretboard has the original bar frets in it with very little wear. I'm very surprised that that survived all these years. And the neck on these things, as far as I can understand, were the traditional Spanish slip in the heel type neck, where they would slide into slots rather than the bolt-on, or excuse me, the dovetail. And at some point, apparently somebody found that out because there's a patch right there in the fretboard where they tried to get in there, and I guess they figured out, oops, this is a Spanish heel instead of a dovetail. So very interesting, but I think it's going to sound great. I'm going to put some synthetic gut strings on this thing, and we'll have it playable hopefully by the end of next week. All right, here I am back over to my camera number 1 coming back up. Deanna, the girl from Ipanema, is monitoring the chat box there because I can't obviously step away from the camera and monitor the chat box at the same time. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints have to be done in person here in Parker, not through the chat box. So if you have any.
Very, very interesting from David, and somebody's trying to find out what's going on with underneath that.
Oh, underneath this. Who says that?
Luteria de Pobre.
Oh, Luteria de Pobre. That's Jonatas down there in Brazil. Well, Jonatas, you have discovered something. In the chat box, he put the Google Forms, it's an online sharpening course drawing. All right, so part of the secret is out. I am going to give away 2 drawings today. One is for an online course, the sharpening course, and one is going to be for the audiobook. So, secret's out. I was going to try and keep that a secret until the end, but Jonas is on the ball this morning. He's figured that out. All right, so the topic for today is essential hand tools. I get a lot of emails and a lot of questions about, hey, what tools do I need to build the guitar or follow your online course? And I've divided that into 3 different categories: hand tools, power tools, and specialty tools. Specialty tools being jigs, templates, like fretting tools, binding jigs, side benders if you want to go that direction, neck angle jigs, things like that. Question, Adriana?
Dasuki Photography, he says, I'm fixing an oud, thinking instrument.
An oud.
Oud, thank you. That the top has caved about 3/4 inch on the top. Mm-hmm. The glue to the side seem to be in good shape. How would you fix it?
I was going to show you. I was going to show you some pictures of the Martin. So now's probably a good time to do that. Let me just get over here and show you that. We got to click on this here. There you go. There's the Martin. That's the way it came in, and you just saw what it is now. And I've got a few pictures here I can show you, but you can see the big hole there behind the bridge. The problem with these guitars is back in the day, they had gut strings on them. And they didn't have nearly the amount of tension that our modern day guitars have. And so what would happen is people would put the steel strings, when those came out around 1920 or so, and they started caving in. They couldn't withstand the pressure or the tension. And so they started putting the jazz tail pieces on them, and they still kind of caved in. And that guitar there that you saw on the bench had a jazz tail piece at one time, and it's somewhere lost in history. Somebody placed it on there trying to keep it from caving in, but it still kind of caved in, as you can see. So the jazz tail piece has gone away. If you look back towards the end of the guitar there, straight back from the bridge, you can see that it's caved in a little bit there. There's a chunk of binding and purfling missing that I had to redo there. And it also cracked the top pretty seriously. Now that top, somebody's done some work to it over the years. You can tell it doesn't have a period bridge on there. It's got a big hunk of mahogany on there. And somebody's done some work on it and sanded it and refinished it, did a bunch of stuff. Behind the bridge, it was between about 1.5 and 1.8 millimeters thick on that top. In front of the bridge, it was 0.5 millimeters. We're talking veneer, folks. That's how thin it was, paper thin. And it was in bad shape. So here's another picture of it. There's the inside, and you can see the big bridge patch that somebody placed on the inside there. That thing is just atrocious. It probably weighed more than the bridge. And there's glue all over in the side there. You can also see the fan brace there on the top right part. See how it's scalloped? There's also one on the left side of the picture that I don't think you can quite see. There used to be one down the middle until somebody pulled most of it out and put that big bridge patch in there. But you can also see the tone bar down there in the lower bow behind the bridge. It's also heavily scalloped, but very, very thin. And let's go on to another picture here. There's what I had to work with after I got it all apart. As you can tell, it's in pieces. That big square piece or rectangular piece there towards the center, a little bit to the right, is the part that is about 1.8 or 1.7 millimeters thick. I mean, it's extremely thin, and that's behind the bridge there. Let's see if I got another picture for you there. Oh, there it is, being put back together. Somebody has done a lot of work over the years on it, and so my job was to try and make it playable. So there you go. Let me get back to my stream footage there. There we go. Question,
we have
Adriana?
more people joining. We have somebody from, I forgot his name here, Luis from Paonia, Colorado. That's Delta County. And somebody from Argentina, Fernando. And Larry, he has a question. Oh,
there's Larry down there in Alabama. How you doing, Larry? Greetings. I want to learn how to work with bar frets. I'm just fascinated with 1926 to 1929 or so 12 fret Martin guitars where they had switched to steel strings but still had bar frets and small bridges. Well, you're in luck. I have a video. I don't think I've released it just yet, Larry, that shows how to refret a guitar using bar frets, keeping it original. But I have done a video on that. Speaking of videos, people ask me for repair videos all the time. So for the last year and a half, 2 years, anything that comes across my bench, I've been documenting it. And I've got 26 chapters that will become an online repair and restoration course. It covers everything from basic setup on steel string, electric, classical, banjo, lute, I mean, you name it, it's there, all the way up into complete restorations like on that 1860 Martin that you've seen there. So it's a pretty comprehensive course. I've been at it for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now, putting this thing together. And I hope to be able to make that thing available here in the next 4 to 6 weeks, possibly. I'm still uploading it up to the server, and it's taken me several weeks to load it because it's a very large course. But that I think I do bar frets in that course too, Larry. So be patient, it's coming out. I also have a tips du jour on bar frets somewhere. Argentina, Fernando, welcome aboard. Larry's fabulous, very excited to hear about the bar fret videos. Good. Pet the shop dog. He was just here. Oh, there he is over here in the corner.
Can you see him?
I can't see him on camera here. And I don't want to move one of my cameras. All right, so let's get back to talking about essential hand tools. Now, I'm hoping that you folks are not going to be disappointed because my hand tool collection is very large. I have all of the bells and whistles, everything that Lee Nelson practically offers. I also have the low end, the basic Stanley block planes from Home Depot for $35. And The ones I use the most are the cheaper tools. It's like driving, for example, a Volkswagen Beetle or a Fusca in Brazil, as you guys say, or a Ferrari. Both of them will get you from point A to point B, point A to point B. It all depends on how much you want to spend on that car. All of the tools that I use here will get you from point A to point B. If you want the gold-plated version, then go get the gold-plated version, but it doesn't make your guitar sound any better. So, good morning from Canada, Milton. Welcome aboard, Milton. Grande abraço from Brazil. Man, we got a lot of Brazilians on here today. I think what it is just the girl from Ipanema. They knew that she was going to be on here this morning, and so they decided to tune in to see the girl from Ipanema.
We also have somebody from Açores, Portuguese speaking. So.
Oh, okay.
Portugal.
Oh, Raimundo's from Portugal. That's right. Welcome aboard from Portugal. All right, I'm going to turn it on to camera number 3 here. Camera number 3 shows all the secrets right here. There it is. There's the secret to building a guitar. It's all under here. I hope you're not disappointed, because you're going to find that there's not very much under this blanket here. Here we go.
There is a question.
Well, just in time. That was close. I almost revealed the secret there to building a guitar. All right, who has a question?
Does the Bashkin fretting course cover bar frets?
That's right. I forgot about that. Thank you, Jim, for reminding me. Or Dave. Yes, Michael Bashkin and I did a fretting course this past year, and it is very comprehensive. And yes, he does touch on bar frets there. He doesn't actually, I think, show how to install them, but he discusses them and talks about them. So yes, that's another source for learning how to do bar frets. Okay. Let's see, I'm having difficulty setting up a new Stanley 60.5-inch block plane. It's cutting deeper on the left side and can't seem to square up with the blade. Any suggestions? Yes. All right, let's go back to here. Dun, dun, dun. Should I just do it like a Band-Aid, Adriana? just rip it off?
Yes, just do it, man.
Okay, here we go. Ready? Wow, there it is. Now, I hope you're not disappointed, because there's not very many tools there. And everybody's tuning in to see all of this great tool collection that Robert O'Brien has, but this is what I mainly use. Since who was it wanted to know about the block plane? Brady. Brady wanted to know about the block plane. So let's start talking about it. You're going to need a plane. And this is just a $35, very cheap block plane I got from Home Depot about 25 years ago. Now, how much money you spend right out of the gate on a plane or a hand tool in general is going to depend whether or not you can pull it out of the box and start working, or whether or not you need to go to work on it. So this plane only cost $35, so guess what? I had to go to work on it. And for a hand plane, the first thing you want to do is flatten the sole. Just take yourself a Sharpie and put a few marks, one right in front and one right behind the actual mouth, the blade there, and then one up front and one below there, and come in and flatten it, because they're not flat right out of the box. And I just use a piece of sandpaper on a flat surface, like a piece of tile or granite or marble or something that's flat. And I sand it. I start with about 80 or 120 and then finish off about 220, maybe 320. Make sure it's flat. Then you got to sharpen the blade, and I'm going to give away one of my sharpening courses here a little bit, so that you can learn how to sharpen. By the way, for those of you just tuning in, I'm going to give away 2 of my courses today. One is the audiobook and one is the sharpening course. You got to click on the link in the chat box there. Give me your email address and your name so we know how to contact you. So make sure you do that if you want to be eligible for the drawing. So once you've got the sole flat, then you got to sharpen it. And the online sharpening course talks about that. Of course, you want to flatten the back. In fact, let me just show you here. We pop this thing out. There's the blade inside there. Oh, by the way, how do you know the difference between a block plane and a bench plane? Does anybody know that answer? There is an answer. How do you know the difference between a block plane and a bench plane? For you folks that are tool aficionados out there, let me know. Oh, there's Duke. Duke's moaning on the floor over here. It's tough life. What's the difference between a block plane and a bench plane? Does anybody know? Nobody knows. I don't see anything coming into the chat box there. Okay, here's the secret. Here's the answer. A block plane has the bevel up when you embed it into the plane. A bench plane has the bevel down. And that's how you tell the difference. Now, there is an exception, and let me pull out an exception here. This plane here is the low angle jack plane from Lee Nielsen. Very versatile plane, and the bevel is up in this plane. So technically this belongs to the block plane family, and it's categorized as a bench plane though, so this is an exception. All right, let's get that off the bench because I don't really want to talk about that one because you don't need that one to build a guitar.
Then when you ask a question, you have to wait a little for the delay.
Yeah, there is a delay there. Yeah. Okay. So we were talking, who was the person that wanted to know how to set up the block plane? Johnny's here from Norway. Welcome aboard, Johnny. Steve Foss knows it because he used to study with me at the college. Bevel up for block plane. There you go.
We have more people from Brazil and Greece too joining.
Greece is joining in. Bevel up, bevel down. There you go. Aldos Andrade, he said he didn't know, but now he knows. Heidi knows blade direction. She used to study with me too. Angle up versus down. Very good. So there's the distinction. Bevel up is a block plane. Bevel down is a bench plane, other than that exception that I just showed you. All right. Don't drool on the planes. The fretting course with Michael Baskin is very good. Thank you, Acoustic Coyote. I appreciate that. So once you sharpen the tool, and I'm not going to go into sharpening today because that's not the topic of our live talk here. Once you get the tool or the blade sharpened, then you put it back into the plane. And notice that there's this little lateral adjustment here, and that's what you're going to use to square up the blade. So once you put the cap back on here and tighten it, there you go. Then you have this little set screw in the back that determines how far that blade is protruding out the mouth there. And you don't want this thing protruding very much. And I don't have it put in there right. Block planes are not to make big cuts. They're to make small cuts. And most people haven't figured that out, and the blade's not cutting well, and so they extend that blade even more, and now they've got a problem because the thing doesn't want to cut at all. So don't get impatient with it. Very small cuts. All right, so once you get it back in there, then this set screw here determines how far out the blade is, like so. And you can just lightly run your finger along the left and right side, and you can kind of feel how much it's protruding. There is another way to do that, and I'm not set up to do it, but I can be set up to do it very quickly, and I think that will answer your question real quick. So let me just get out a shooting board here. And by the way, anybody notice anything interesting about this shooting board? While I go grab a piece of wood, I'm going to let you guys decide what's different about that shooting board. And then you tell me if anybody finds something interesting about that shooting board there.
Okay. Larry just mentioned that you can get a better price for different supplier, Hawk Tools.
Hawk Tools for, oh yeah, you can get a different blade. That's right. Yeah. Sometimes if you want to purchase, like a low cost plane like the Stanley, then you can upgrade the blade for it and put a really nice blade in there. Holds an edge a little bit better and that kind of stuff. And you can get those from Hawk Tools, I think is what the name of it is. All right. All right, PS 1556. You're right, it's double-sided. Hey, Tony, hi from Denver. How you doing, Tony? Good to see you here. It is double-sided, and the reason why it's double-sided, let me go back down here. The reason why it's double-sided is because when I'm working on my end wedge, the end wedge is, triangular in shape, so I've got my lines on there, and I'm using my hand plane on the side like this to whittle down, but if you turn it over, you can no longer see your lines, and you want to be traveling downhill. So I've made a left-handed shooting board so you can work on the left-handed side. There you go, left and right-handed. All right, here's how you set up the plane. So I just take my blade like this, and I'm way over here on the left-hand side of the plane. And I'm just barely beginning to cut. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the right-hand side of the blade, and it's not cutting at all. So that tells me my blade is not square. So let's try and square it up a little bit. So here we are on the left-hand side, nothing. Right-hand side, nothing. And then down the middle, nothing. So slowly push your blade out until you get a little bit on the left-hand side. There we go. I'm getting just a little cut there. Right-hand side, still nothing. So let's move it over just a little bit more. Here we go again. Left-hand side, getting a cut. Right-hand side, getting nothing. Right-hand side, still getting nothing. There we go. I'm just beginning to get a cut on the right-hand side of the blade. Let's go to the left-hand side of the blade. Just getting a little bit of cut. Let's go just a little bit more. There we go. Right-hand side of the blade, left-hand side of the blade. I'm getting about the same amount of shaving, and then down the middle, also getting the same amount of shaving. So that tells me that that blade is sitting in there square. So that's how you set up the plane. Word of caution though, if you don't sharpen that plane blade correctly, if you get an angle going on it or concave or convex because your stones aren't flat, then you got a problem when you're trying to set this thing up. So make sure that you know how to sharpen the blade and then properly set it up. Hand tools are great, by the way. I love working with hand tools. It should be therapeutic. If you have veins popping out of your forehead and sweat rolling down and you're really exerting a lot of effort, something's wrong. Stop, reevaluate, think about it. And usually what's happening is two things: operator error or the tool's not sharpened and set up properly. Operator error we can eliminate because that would never happen to anybody watching this live stream. I'm sure that would never happen. So it's probably just sharpening and setup. So make sure that sharpen, set up properly, make sure your technique is right. All right, questions coming in?
Watching from Brazil.
Hand tool builds. I need to build myself one of those shooting boards. Yes, there you go. Brazil Grass, watching from South Brazil. Thank you for tuning in. Muito obrigado. Is your block plane straight or curved? It's straight. I don't curve. Now, a lot of people, when they're sharpening, as they're sharpening, when they do their final honing, they'll lean a little heavy on the left or lean heavy on the right, and they'll slightly bevel the front edge of that blade. I don't do that. I just use it as is. Okay. Okay. All right. Very good. So that's how you set up the block plane, and that is probably one of my most used tools, the block plane. I paid $35 for this at Home Depot about 25 years ago, and this is the one that I use the most. Now, I have all of the high dollar Lee Nelson block planes. I've got the rabbiting plane and the scraper planes, all of those stuff. But this one is probably the one I use the most. And anybody who's come and taken a class with me can attest to that this is probably the one I use the most. If it's sharp and set up properly, you don't need the super high dollar ones. I've even got a little story about that. Since there's a lot of Brazilians on here, I'll tell a story that happened to me when I was in Brazil about maybe 15 years ago. I was visiting Antonio Tessarin. He's the person that taught me how to build guitars. And I was at his shop, and the phone rang. And it was somebody that had sent him a guitar. And we just happened to be looking at that guitar. He said, hey, one of my students or somebody here in Brazil sent this to me to evaluate. Take a look at it. And I looked at it, and it was flawless. It was a very, very nice classical guitar. And the phone rang, and it was this guy. And Antonio said, hey, Robert's here. Talk to him. So I started talking to this guy. I said, hey, where are you from? He's way up in the outback somewhere there in up in northern part of Brazil. And we started talking and struck up a conversation, and he wants to do this to, full time, make a living, that kind of stuff. But he didn't have a lot of financial means to do it. So I got back to the States, we're talking and stuff and emailing, and he sent me pictures of his shop. It's a concrete slab out there in the sun, cinder block walls, no roof, and the guy's out there building these masterpieces. It's amazing. And he told me, he said, yeah, my dream is to have a Stanley block plane. That was this guy's dream. $35. Well, heck, I hung up the phone and walked down to Home Depot here in Parker, Colorado, bought the guy a block plane and sent it to him. And that just made his day. So you don't need the high dollar stuff. This will work. People build guitars with pocket knives. Down there in Paracho, Mexico, there's a special knife that I forget the name of it right now, but they basically build the whole guitar almost with that pocket knife. There's a friend that I follow on Facebook down in Ecuador, father-son team, Pablo and his son, or Luis is the father, Pablo's the son. And they build guitars all using hand tools. So it's certainly possible. You don't need the high dollar stuff. So we've talked about the block plane. That is probably one of the most used tools in my shop. I use it for truing up the kerfing with the sides before I take it to the radius dish. I use it for thicknessing sides. You can do that. I've used it for thicknessing tops. I've used it for joining tops. Of all things, you can use a block plane to join a top. So there's a lot of uses for the block plane. If nobody has any more questions about the block plane, we'll move on to the next tool. Adriana, any more questions?
Yeah, the last one you had, I think you answered about being straight or curved, right?
Okay. All right.
Answer that one.
All right. So as we're working here, I tell you what, why don't we give something away? I'm feeling generous today. Cesar down there in Brazil, get ready. There's about a 30-second delay. I'm going to have to call him on the phone. So if you guys want to, I'm going to give away one of my audiobooks. If you guys want to be eligible for the drawing, you have to click on the link and enter the drawing, which is name and email address. So I'm just going to call my web developer down there in Brazil, and let's go ahead and give something away. What do you think, Adriana?
That's a good idea.
Let's do it. All right, here we go. And I'm calling Cesar down there in Brazil. I have to do it here because there's a 30-second delay on the chat. So, he's not even going to answer. Look at that. There he is. All right. There you go. There's Cesar down there in Brazil. Hello, Cesar.
Hello.
Cesar's my web developer. He's a genius. If anybody needs any web design work, he's the guy. I met him when he was about 4 years old, and now here he is. He had a birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to you. Yeah, birthday. 28 years old. Look at that.
Thank you.
You're making him blush.
All right, so Cesar, we're going to give away an audiobook. What do you think?
Okay, that's perfect. So far we have 24 entries.
24 entries for the audiobook. Perfect.
We have 63 viewers.
And 63 viewers. All right. So not everybody wants a copy of the audiobook, or maybe you already have a copy, which is fine.
We have more entries coming in right now. Do you want me to stop for a little bit?
Yeah, maybe we should wait a minute or two if we got more entries coming in. What do you think?
Yeah. We're on 25 now.
25 now. Okay.
25, okay.
Even Duke came down. Duke the shop dog. He wants to get into that drawing.
Yeah.
What do you think? Are we ready to go?
Yes. So let me just switch cameras and show you the...
All right. And as we're waiting here, I'll answer a question. Hand Tool Builds is asking, what do you use for sharpening? Diamond, whetstones, or machines? I use whetstones. I use the Norton whetstones. I use... mainly 4,000 and 8,000 grit. When I get a new tool and I need to tune it up, I start with 320 and go all the way up to 8,000. But I use the Norton Waterstones. All right, so I'm going to show this here to the crowd. There we go.
Oh,
We got 25 people.
Going to generate the random number.
Okay, here comes random number. Let's see who we're going to get.
25. And the number is...
Who is it?
Dave Anthony.
Dave Anthony, come on down. You're the lucky winner of the Robert O'Brien Guitars audiobook this morning. So just go ahead and write into the chat box there that, yep, you're here and that you get the audiobook. And
just wait a little bit.
Yeah, we've got a little delay going on here, so I'll just let...
We just now saw that, so let's wait.
Yep, so I'll let you just put in the audio or in the chat box there that you accept the audiobook. If not, we'll move on to the next person. And I'll give you just a little time here. It's David Anthony, or Dave Anthony is the winner of the audiobook. For you guys that didn't win, don't worry. We're going to have another drawing. It's coming up here at the end of the stream, which is just a few minutes. We've been on here already 45 minutes almost. We'll do another drawing, and that one's going to be for my sharpening course, because none of these tools that I'm showing you here work if they're not sharp. So you got to know how to sharpen them. All right. Lucia de Pobre down there in Brazil says, congrats, Dave. I don't see that Dave's up here yet. We'll give him a few minutes.
You should have a little short joke next time you do that. So tell the joke until the person comes in.
Joke or a story, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll just give him a few minutes here. I'm going to go on and talk about some more hand tools. And if he doesn't answer here in the next couple of minutes, then we'll try again with somebody else. Cesar, I'm going to keep you online here just in case we need to come back to you. Okay. Here we go. Back down here to the secret table. Oh, also here on the table, you'll notice off here on the edge.
Yes, he's there. He just answered.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Where? I don't see his answer.
I do. Dave, yeah, yay, I'm here. He just said.
There it is. It just showed up for me. I got a little delay. All right. So Dave, congratulations. You have won the audiobook. I think you'll find it very entertaining. So Cesar, if you contact him, you've got his email address. Just contact him and give him access to the audiobook if you can. Thank you. All right. I'm going to hang up with Cesar here. I'll call you back in a little bit when we give away our next drawing. Okay? There we go. Thank you, Cesar. All right, so back down here to the table. I was going to talk about this out here. This is a vise, and I use the heck out of my vices. Anybody who's ever come and studied with me knows that I have a vise on every bench, sometimes on all four corners. I use a lot of the vices for holding things as I work, and those are very, very useful. I don't consider them a hand tool, but you need a bench vise. All right, let's move along here. Another tool that I use a lot, and this is called a scraper. Scrapers come in three varieties, thin, medium, and thick. This is the medium variety. I like the medium variety because they're easier to flex. And I do like to work with my scraper flexed. So it's got a bit of a curve on it as I work. So basically I'm only using that middle portion as the cutting edge. And for those that don't know how a scraper works, it's just a hunk of metal and you hone one edge and then use what's known as a burnisher, which can just be a screwdriver shaft if you want to, and you roll over a piece of that metal and there's a hook on it. Depending on how far you rolled over the hooks is going to depend on your working position in there. I roll mine over about 5 or 10 degrees, which means I'm working more standing up, so I'm pushing the tool. If you roll that hook over considerably, then you're working in this position, and now you're trying to have to pull the tool to find that cutting edge, and it's more comfortable to work like this. Hello from Winter Haven, Florida. Michael, hey, how you doing? Tom Moore from Illinois, welcome aboard. You guys just missed the drawing for the audiobook. If you want to be eligible for the Sharpening course drawing, then click on that link at the top and enter with your email address and your name. So the scraper is a very useful tool. I use it throughout the build. I use it with my tops. Very first thing when I get a top, how I evaluate the quality of that top is I take either my block plane or a scraper or a combination and just run it across the top of that piece of wood. And I let the wood talk to me. It will tell me very quickly if there's any run out. It will also allow me to see things like quarter sawn. If it's extremely quarter sawn, then you see silking. And normally when we purchase our lumber from LMI, it comes with sanding marks in it. And if you don't get rid of those sanding marks, you can't see the silking in there. So it tells you about run out and silking and quarter sawn and all the quality of the wood. A lot of times, sometimes if you have run out, you find you plane one direction, it does fine the other direction, it likes to chatter. So you got to go in opposite directions. The scraper will tell you that right out of the gate. So even before, like when I'm selecting my tops, I'll run a scraper across it just to figure out, what the wood can tell me. I also use this to scraping bindings flush, purflings flush, finish. When I get into the finish work, I'm scraping the top, back, and sides of the neck after I carve it. I mean, this is just a wonderful tool. Whoever came up with this idea needs to get a Nobel Prize, because this is just a wonderful tool. It just costs you a few bucks. It's not pricey at all. And if it's honed and tuned up properly, it's your best friend. If it's not, it's your worst enemy. So learn how to use a scraper. And it took me a while to do that. I remember down in Brazil, Antonio, what he would do to sharpen his scrapers, he would walk over to his sander, he would put this scraper at a 45-degree angle and run it across there and roll over one big burr on one side. And it took me a year or so to learn that trick. He also put a radius on it. And that was fantastic. These days, I put a 90-degree and roll a hook on either side like most people. But very, very useful tool. Go with the medium variety rather than the thin or the thick. Now, when you buy these, they usually come in 3-packs from Woodcraft, Rockler, places like that. And you can, you get 3 of them. But the one I use the most is the medium one.
So I have more people joining.
More questions? More people joining?
No questions. We have,
There's another guy in Brazil. Look at that. Muito obrigado. You're welcome, Carlos. Thank you for tuning in. Arlington, Texas, longtime viewer of the Tips du Jour. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. And Carlos is in São Paulo. I'm going to be in Brazil next month. For you folks that are down there in Brazil, about the 10th or 11th, I'm going to jump on a plane here in Denver, head through Atlanta, and then on my way to Brazil. So I may be able to see some of you guys down there in Brazil, since there's a large Brazilian population here on the chat. All right, what should we talk about next year, Adriana?
Oh, very good question.
I've already talked about, I tell you what, let's do process of elimination. I've already talked about the scraper. Let's set that aside. I've already talked about the block plane. Let's set that aside. How about a chisel? Everybody needs a good chisel. And as you can see here, I have just a cheap Stanley chisel. I bought the whole set of Stanley chisels. I think I probably paid 40 or 50 bucks for it about 30 years ago, and I've got the whole set. And I've got the super high dollar Lee Nielsen ones too. Let me just show you that.
Don't forget to mention the hand tool that everybody has.
Oh yeah, the hand tool that everybody has. I'll keep that in the secret room. I'll be here in just a minute. You don't even have to go out and buy it. Everybody has a hand tool here. I've got the super high dollar Lee Nielsen chisels. These are custom Cocobolo handles, and I don't use them near as much as I do the old Stanley because I've become so used to using the old Stanley. It just feels comfortable in my hand. So that one kind of stays in the drawer and only comes out on special occasions when I want to impress people. But this little Stanley, and this is a 1-inch wide Stanley, which is the size that I use the most. I do all of my shaping of my braces, both my classical and my steel string. I do the carving of the heel, carving of the transition into the peg head with this. Anytime I need to cut something, I'm doing a miter on the bindings, this is what I use. I mean, this is just an all-around versatile chisel, and like I said, I paid maybe 40 or 50 bucks for it about 30 years ago. And if you keep it shiny, keep it nice and shiny on the back there, and then sharpen it up, it does everything you ask it to do. And that is just a great tool. Everybody needs a chisel, so if you can't buy a whole set, get you about a 1/2 inch up to a 1-inch wide one. And I like to use the 1-inch wide one, but that's all you need basically as far as a cutting tool for chisels is just one chisel.
Tem alguém perguntando como você afia seus formões. Eu vou pegar a bateria já.
Formões. Oh, how do I sharpen my chisels is what the question is there in Portuguese. I use the same technique. I use Norton Waterstones and a honing guide. Nothing fancy. And I do have a course on how to sharpen. And by the way, did I mention I'm giving that course away here in a few minutes? So if you're interested, you can click on the link there, name, email, address, and then you're eligible for the sharpening course. None of these tools that I'm mentioning here will work unless you are willing to sharpen them and set them up properly. Most of the time, when people are having trouble with hand tools, it's because of operator error or they're not tuned or set up properly. All right, let me just check the chat box here real quick since the girl from Ipanema has gone upstairs. I think I just answered Carlos's question there. I bought a few Lee Nielsen beautiful chisels, but the handles don't stay in. Any tips on that? Oh, that's Dave. Yeah, the handles do not stay in on the Lee Nielsen chisels. These handles are made to be removable, and I usually just tap mine on the bench, and that seats it in there properly. The reason why that they're removable is because you can take them off and not get them wet or dirty as you're sharpening. And so that's a big plus. They just slide out. This one's not going to slide out because I got it tapped in there pretty good, but these things will let loose eventually. And I can't even get this one out, so let's just leave them in there. But yeah, these are made to come out, and you don't want to glue them in, don't epoxy them in, anything like that. They're made to be removable. That way also, if you ever need to replace a handle, you can. If it's epoxied in there, you can't. For example, if this breaks, then there's no way to replace that other than just buy a new chisel. There we go.
There are a few questions. I don't know if you answered that one. David asked a question.
Yeah, he bought a few Lee Nielsen chisels. I just answered that. Jim Kirby, do you know reason why some chisels don't have the perfectly flat back that is typical for bench chisels? Not flat by design, like Lee LMI's chisels. Yes, there are some chisels out there that are not flat by design. Japanese chisels, they're not flat all the way up the back of the chisel. Just a small portion of it is, and or it's kind of conical in shape, and only the edges of the shaft or of the blade are flat. I may have an example of that. Let me see here. Let me open up the drawer full of chisels, and I can't find my Japanese chisel at the moment. There it is. If you look at this, see, it's not flat all the way up to the back. It's only flat on the edges, and then there's right here. It makes it much easier to sharpen. You don't have to flatten the whole thing. And from what I understand, that helps relieve the tension as they're making the blade so it stays flat rather than getting conical or curved on you during the heating process. That's what I've heard, but I don't know. So there's a good example of not being flat all the way up there. But as you sharpen it, you know, right on the very tip there, it is flat, and you want to keep that cutting edge flat. There are specialty types of chisels called gouges that are, you know, conical in shape and stuff. And the violin makers and the mandolin makers, where you have to carve the plates, they use those a lot. Okay. Heidi, my favorite scraper is the razor blade, along with my regular scraper. Yeah, let me grab my favorite tool. I forgot to include that one. Heidi, thank you very much for reminding me. This is probably one of my favorite tools, and we will put this one into the hand tool category. It's just a razor blade, and this works as a miniature scraper. You can also use it in a pinch to do some cutting, and I use this a lot. Jim Kirby, thinking more blades that are convex, opposite of Japanese. I'm not familiar with that, Jim. I'm not sure if I understand the question there. Sorry about that. This I use a lot. It's one of my favorite tools. Just a razor blade, you know, utility knife blade you can get at your local woodworking or big box store, hardware store. All right, so another one we can remove from the equation here is the chisel. We've talked about that. Along the lines of hand planes, it's not essential, but I've included it because I use it a lot. This is, I think, what Lee Nelson calls the violin maker's plane. There are cheaper versions out there. I use it to level the bindings and purflings when I have highly figured pieces of wood. For example, if I'm using flame maple, for example, on the bindings, if you come in and scrape those bindings flush, which I used to do a lot, I'd scrape the bindings flush on the top and backs, and everything looks great. You sand, you go put a finish on, and you see these little ripples because it's catching the grain, and you get these little ripples in there, and you think you've sanded them all out, but you can't. I discovered a few years ago that if you level your bindings with this little guy, that takes care of that problem. So this is a fantastic little tool. You can use it for shaving classical guitar fan braces that are very small, steel string braces. I mean, just an all-around great all-purpose tool. Not essential though. You don't have to have it. A chisel and a block plane work just as well, but this is a pretty nice tool to have. It's about $100 from Lee Nelson. You don't have to have it, and there are cheaper versions out there. So we'll put that one aside. Question.
I mentioned something. The chisel you had that Paco and I liked to use so much was about A2, steel blue spruce 2 works 3/4.
Yes. Yes, that was this one here.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. That is a blue spruce custom chisel, and it's a paring chisel. I don't use this one a lot, but it can be very useful, but it's not essential. And there's a little story behind this tool. A guy came and studied with me a number of years ago, and he had just had surgery on his foot. And while he was here, he was constantly changing bandages, and he was on some pretty heavy narcotics. So he wasn't quite all here during the course. But he didn't want to lose his slot in my build list. So he came to the course anyway. And about a year or two later, him and his wife came through Colorado on vacation. He called me up and said, "Hey, we're here on vacation. Do you mind if I drop by?" I said, "No, come on over." So he came over for a Brazilian cup of coffee made by the girl from Ipanema. And he said, "Here, I want to give you this chisel." I said, "Well, thank you very much, but why do I deserve this?" He says, "Well, when I was here a couple of years ago, I wasn't all here, and you were so patient with me and really helped me out building that guitar. And he had one of these chisels, and apparently I made a comment. What a nice chisel." So he had one custom made for me, and he brought it to me. What a nice gesture. Thank you very much, but not essential. The Stanley little block plane will work, or a little chisel will work great. Okay.
There are some comments. Michael Friesel.
Michael.
Using plate glass with tape for an edge scraper.
Sure. Plate glass with tape for an edge scraper works fine. Robbie, you know my favorite tool, the vacuum bags. That's right.
I'm with you.
Up there in Canada. What he's talking about is the vacuum bag. And there's a video on YouTube about how to laminate your sides, and we did that video together. So if you want to check that out. Jim Kirby, if you have any of the LMI chisels, for example, have a look. I do have a couple of the LMI chisels. There's one right there, but it appears to be flat. Here's another LMI chisel, and that one appears to be flat. So I'm not quite sure where we're going with this. but those are both flat.
Getting
All right.
2 minutes to the top of the hour.
Okay, yeah, so we got to wrap this up. Are you missing the handsaw from the bench? If you could choose only one for making a classical guitar, which would it be? You know, I didn't put a handsaw here on the bench because I use a power tool to do that. Remember, I divide my tools into 3 categories: hand tools, power tools, and specialty tools, fretting tools, you know, things like that, jigs and templates. So I use my bandsaw, and you know, once again, I can do a shop talk on that down the road, but a small benchtop model will work great. For you guys that like hand tools for doing your cutting, there's a couple of saws you can use. This one is very, very cheap. I don't consider it essential because I don't use it a lot. In fact, I used to use that utility blade to score it and snap it. That's how I used to cut my size to length. So you don't have to have one of these, but any type of little fine tooth hand saw like this, dovetail saw, crosscut saw, those all work fine, but I don't consider it essential because I didn't have one for years. Okay. Was just trying to figure out why my bindings had ripples on them. Now I know. There you go. That's why. And I mean, you'll scrape those things. When you're using your scraper, change your angle of attack constantly to keep that from happening, but you'll still probably get some. You'll sand them all flush. I mean, it looks great until you put the finish on. Then you can see those small little ripples. So this hand plane took care of that for me. Okay. What use is there for the squirrel tail planes? Are they useful? Yes, the squirrel tail planes, and I have one behind me here. Here's a high-end version from Lee Nielsen. Here's a low-end version. The green grows, I think, or no, this is the Kunz. This is the German one. They call them squirrel tail because they have a little squirrel tail that fits in the palm of the hand. They work fine, and if you look very closely, that's the same plane. One just has a squirrel tail on it. So there you go. I don't consider those necessarily essential though, but they do work great for, you know, carving braces and things like that. Okay. Let's see. What is the use for squirrel tails? We just got that. They mean about no absolutely flat back side of the chisel, not made on purpose. I'm not sure what's going on there. Come on, you guys, click that like button. There you go. Hey, I like that. Jonathan says thanks. Everybody click that like button. By the way, if you like this content, do click that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's how I pump this stuff out. Jose Marcus, hi from Portugal. Hello from Alabama. Roll Tide. There you go. We know what part of Alabama you're from. All right, let's get on here. I'm just about ready to wrap this up. Here's another cutting tool that I like. I use this a lot for neck carving. This is the spoke shave from Veritas. Now, I used to have the really high dollar Lee Nielsen one, and I sent it back because it doesn't have these little micro adjust set screws here. You always time to tap it. And once you get it set up and you know, it's all good and ready to go, it works great. But you're constantly fiddle farting, and yes, that is a technical term. You're constantly fiddle farting with that blade to get it just right. With these little set screws here, you can dial in the correct amount of cut. And an interesting thing about the spoke shave is that you can skew the blade. You can take it out of square. So if you need a deeper cut, you use the side where it's exposed more. If you need a shallower cut, you use the other side. And so that allows you to adjust the depth of cut as you're working. I use this for neck carving, and it works fantastic. I have used the very cheap Stanley models. They work great. When I upgraded to the Veritas model, I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. It cuts really nice like butter if it's sharpened and set up properly. So I use the Veritas. Back when I got mine, you could still get the Bubinga handles. I don't think you can get the Bubinga handles anymore. They make several different types. I like the flat sole. They make a concave and another type, I believe, or a rounded. The rounded one, you're constantly hunting for the cutting edge. The flat sole, you just set it on there and go, and you're automatically into the cutting edge. I really like the Veritas spoke shape. I consider this an essential tool. Neck carving is what I use that for. Okay. Let's see. Would love to see a chat on specialty tools and more and jigs. Okay, that's coming up. Now, like I said, I divide the tools into 3 categories: hand tools, which is today's topic, power tools, and then specialty tools, which would be neck angle jigs, binding cutting jigs, side benders, you know, anything along that line, radius dishes, things like that, fretting tools. And I will eventually do that. I swear, guys, it's tough finding time to do these shop talks because I keep really busy, as you guys are quite aware. Veritas, low angle spoke shave here. There you go. I like it, Jim. Demian de Brazil, you're welcome. Any comments on the StewMac Ultimate Scraper? I can't really comment on that. I don't have it. I know a lot of people that do, and they swear by it. I know a lot of people that cuss at that thing too, because once it gets dull, how do you sharpen it? One of my students in Brazil, actually, a guy named Pedro, put on my private chat group, put a little video of how to sharpen that thing. It's pretty easily done. I choose not to use it. I prefer the old kind that you know, flex like that.
I have 3 days.
Okay, Tony, you probably have that Ultimate Scraper. I don't, and I don't particularly use it, but this is what I use. Okay, we're coming to the end here. I got one more tool to talk about. What's that?
Yeah, the tool.
Oh yeah, I got 2 tools to talk about. Let's talk about one of them. And my wife says that everybody has one of these. That's the high-tech glue spreading device right here. Everybody's got that hand tool, and it's already attached to the hand. There you go. I used to play a joke on my students when I was still teaching the Luthery course at a local college here in Colorado. And about a week or 2 before semester would start, I would send out a welcome email. And I'd say, okay, guys, we'll see you the first night. Make sure that you bring all of your materials that you've ordered, your shop apron, your earmuffs, your eye protection, all that kind of stuff. And oh, by the way, make sure that you bring your high-tech glue spreading device. Every semester, I would get an email from at least a couple of guys saying, hey, I've got everything ready to go, but where do I get a high-tech glue spreading device? And I would tell the folks, look, don't sweat it, just show up. You've already got 10 of them. All right, let's see. Can I use the same tool for cutting holes and bindings? And what should that be? For cutting holes? No, for cutting holes, you want to use a drill. For cutting bindings, I use a binding cutting jig. And I put that into the power tools or specialty tools category. If you want to do it by hand, you certainly can. And I have tools here in the bench that show you how to do it by hand, or that I use to do it by hand if I do it. I've also got videos on YouTube that show you how to do it by hand. I don't consider that essential because I don't do that. I use the LMI binding cutting jig to cut the binding channels. All right, here we go to the last tool. Dun dun dun. Drum roll, please. By the way, if you want to get in on the giveaway here of the sharpening course, click on the link there at the top of the chat box, put in your name and email address. Here we go. Last tool, a rasp. I use this a lot. I do consider this essential. I use this for carving the heel and for the front part of the heel. The side of the heel, I use a chisel. The front part of the heel, I use this, and the transition into the peg head from the shaft of the neck. I was taught to carve the entire neck with a spoke shave and then just use this for the transition areas, the heel and the peg head. These days, though, I even use the rasp in the part of the neck where I use a spoke shave. It helps me keep a little bit better control of the roundness, the radius of that. Now, this is what we call a number 49 Nicholson. By the way, these rasps, the 49 and the 50 Nicholson, the 49 is the coarser one, and the 50 is the finer one. These are made in Brazil, but you can't buy them in Brazil. So sorry for all you guys down there in Brazil that can't buy these things down there. I used to have to come back to the States to buy these, and they were made in Brazil, so go figure. These are, I think here in the States, they call them the cabinet maker's rasp or the pattern maker's rasp or something like that. They are cut by hand, or not by hand, but by machine, so they do leave a little bit of a mark or a pattern in there. A great tool. I used to carve necks for a long time just with this. I've got a couple of these off camera here I'm going to show you. Before I had that, I used your old hardware store variety rasp that is a coarse rounded and a fine rounded on one side, and a flat coarse and a flat fine on the other side. I used this for a number of years. I remember this used to be my father's. When I was about 5 years old, I think he bought this. And I've used the heck out of it building guitars. These days, I like the number 49 Nicholson and the 50 to finish it up. However, a few years ago, I went to what we call the dragon tail rasp. Now, these are not essential. The one I just showed you worked just fine. These are called dragon tail rasps. I bet you can't guess why they're called dragon tail rasps. That went over like a lead balloon, didn't it? I get these from StewMac. I used to be able to buy the set for $100. I got a coarse one and a fine one. They make long ones and they make short ones. I've got the long ones. Used to buy the set for $100. Now the set's about $200. They come from China. They're hand stitched. In other words, these little cutting teeth are cut by hand, and they leave less of a pattern because they're kind of random. I use these a lot for the neck. Transition from the heel into the barrel, along the barrel, and the transition into the back of the peghead. Fantastic tool, not quite essential. The number 49 Nicholson will work just fine. Used to be able to buy these for $35, $40. They're probably about $75 or $80 now. So those have gone up quite a bit. So those are what I consider the essential hand tools and the ones that I use the most here in my shop. Once again, though, none of those tools will work if they're not sharpened and set up properly. So I think it's time to give away a sharpening course. What do you think?
That's a good idea. One of the questions they had here, he said it's the sound hole.
Yes, the sound hole. Let me show you what I use in my shop. It's not essential, but I do that process by hand. I use the LMI circle cutting jig. I got blue tape on there because it's got the Allen tools that go with it. But basically it's just a blade that I've sharpened and it rotates on a pen. I use those to cut out the sound hole. One of the reasons why I can build a guitar in 6 days here with my students is I have dedicated tools. The dedicated tool to cut the sound or the rosette channel is a Dremel or a laminate trimmer, depending whether I'm doing steel string or classical. And rather than take the bit out or get a bigger bit and reset it up to do a different cut, I just use this. This is dedicated for cutting out the sound hole. No noise, no dust, it cuts very clean and very quickly. By the time I get out the other tool and readjust it, I can already have the step done by using a hand tool. Not essential though. I have used a popsicle stick with an X-Acto blade stuck in it and a knife in the other end to cut out the sound hole. So you can use very, very simple tools if you like. Love my French rasps, money well spent. Yes, Jim, I also have the French rasps. These are the Ario, or however you pronounce it, rasps. These are $200 or $300. They come from France. They don't make your guitar sound any better, but boy, they're nice to work with. The ones that I use the most, though, are the Dragon Tail rasps. Heidi, I'm breathing fire over that joke. I don't remember which joke it was, but I'm glad you liked it.
The finger.
Oh, the finger. Okay, good. Let's see. Jose Marquez used the rasp to carve all the neck. For me, it works great. Yeah, some people do that, and that's fine. I never used a spoke shave because money was always short, and now I'm used to it. No problem. A rasp will work fine. Larry, you could use the same blade in a handmade Gremel for bindings and a homemade hole cutter, a blade like the Hawk tools. Yep, that works well. Thanks for sharing your tips and experience, Robert. I've learned so much from you over the years. Thank you. I certainly appreciate that. All right, let's give something away. What do you think?
Yep.
We've already given away the audiobook. Let's give away, let me call Cesar here. Let's give away the sharpening course because none of this information will help unless you know how to sharpen it. So let's give away a sharpening course. Here comes Cesar. There he is again. Hey, Cesar, happy birthday to you. Oh, that was yesterday. So here's Cesar again. How many people entered the drawing for the sharpening?
We have exactly 40 people.
40 people. So more people are interested in the sharpening course than me telling stories in the audiobook, I guess, huh?
We could get more people, though, towards the end.
Yeah. How many people are online now here?
72 now.
72 people. Good deal. All right. Cesar, so are we ready to do a drawing for the sharpening course?
We are ready.
All right.
We just had one more entry coming in. We have
41. All right, go ahead and push the generate there, and it's going to the computer's going to choose a random number for us. Who's number 15? 23 is the number. Okay, who's number 23? Who's 23?
23 is Chris Bees.
Chris, how do you spell the last name? B-E-A-S?
B-E-A-S.
All right, Chris, and I hope we're pronouncing that last name correctly, B-E-A-S, Bees. You are the lucky winner of the Robert O'Brien online sharpening course. And apparently Heidi up there in Prince Edward Island likes dragon rasps. Oh, rasps, not rasps.
That was a joke, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, for those that don't know Heidi, I went to Prince Edward Island to her shop here. Oh my God, Heidi, it's been 5 years ago, 2016. And we did the ukulele building course together, and that is also on my website. So if you're interested in how to make a ukulele, she uses all hand tools, which goes right along with what we're talking about here today. There's a few power tools in there, but it's mostly oriented towards hand tools. All right, Mono El Pastor, that's me. Chris B's here, thanks. All right, well, congratulations, Chris B's. You are the lucky winner of the Robert O'Brien sharpening course.
Is this from Greece? Is that right?
Where are you from? Where's he from, Cesar? Do you know?
He's from Greece, I think.
Is he from Greece?
I think so. Let's see if I got it right.
Dave Wilson, thanks for doing these. You're quite welcome, Dave. It's quite a production. It takes me a couple hours to set up the studio here and get this ready to go, and then the topic and all that kind of stuff. So I could spend a good half the day trying to pull these off. And today's my down day. So as soon as I turn this camera off, I'm going for a walk with the shop dog and the girl from Ipanema, and I'm going to call it a day. And bright and early Monday morning, I start with a new student. We're going to be building a triple O this coming week, and then the following week, I'm building a steel string, and then I'm off to Brazil for a couple weeks.
It's not from Greece.
So you guys down there in Brazil, send me some emails. I'll be in São Paulo if you want to get together for a cup of coffee or something. I'll be there about the second week of August. All right, Los Angeles, that's where he's from, that's right. Okay, Cesar, so you're gonna take care of sending him the access to the course. Congratulations. And
Yes.
all right, Cesar, you can stay online here if you want to.
And you should tell them to look for
For what?
your schedule in case they want to schedule classes for next year or the following.
Okay, my wife is reminding me that my schedule for next year, 2022, is filling very fast. It's already about half full. It usually fills up before I announce it. I announce it usually in about November, the end of November. I announce my schedule for the following year. So if you're interested in coming and building a guitar with me, go ahead and call me, contact me now, get on my schedule, because here it's going to fill up really quick. It's already full, about half for next year. I even have a class scheduled for the following year already. Isn't that amazing?
Wow. Okay.
I want to thank everybody for participating here today. This is an opportunity for me to spread some of the information that I've been fortunate enough to learn over the years and do it completely for free. And certainly a lot of people helped me along the way, and I want to help other people as well along the way. So thank you very much for tuning in. Congratulations to the two people that won the audiobook and the sharpening course, and congratulations to Cesar down there in Brazil. Happy birthday to that. Oh, no, that was yesterday. So take care of those digital or high-tech glue spreading devices. Make sure you have all 10 of them when you get done building your guitar. All right, if there's no further questions, then we will call it a day here. If I can figure out how to shut this thing down. Oh, I do have an ending scene. You guys want to stick around for this. This is kind of cool. Watch this. There's the ending scene. And I even have some music that should pop up here. There it goes. All right, folks, over and out.